Commander Tae-1 gripped the edge of his command chair as the Galari vessel shuddered violently. Warning signals blared throughout the bridge, bathing the crystalline control panels in pulsing red light. "Shields at 12%, Commander," called out Officer June, his voice strained. "We cannot withstand another attack." Through the main viewport, Tae-1 watched in horror as the void swarm engulfed another ship in his fleet. The biological horrors moved like a dark cloud, consuming everything in their path. The screams of dying crew members crackled over the emergency channel before falling silent. "How many ships remain?" Tae-1 asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. "3, sir. The rest have been destroyed or disabled." Tae-1 closed his eyes briefly. The pride of the Galari fleet, reduced to floating debris in mere minutes. Their crystalline technology, celebrated throughout the galaxy for its beauty and efficiency, had proven useless against the swarm's adaptive attacks. "Send distress signals on all frequencies," he ordered. "And prepare the self-destruct sequence. We cannot allow the swarm to capture our ship intact." As June began the final protocols, a young communications officer named Ben looked up suddenly. "Sir!" "Unknown vessel approaching at high speed." Tae-1 felt a flicker of hope that died almost immediately. "Probably scavengers, waiting to pick through what's left after the swarm finishes." "No, sir," Ben replied, adjusting his scanner. It's engaging the swarm." The bridge crew watched in disbelief as a sleek, angular ship tore through space toward them. It was unlike any vessel Tae-1 had ever seen, with smooth lines and pulsing blue energy emanating from its hull. "That's a human ship," whispered June in awe. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as enigmatic loners, rarely involving themselves in conflicts that didn't directly threaten Earth or its colonies. Their technology was rumored to be decades ahead of other species, but few had seen it in action. The human vessel deployed strange field generators that created rippling distortions in space. When these waves hit the void swarm, the creatures recoiled as if burned. The ship moved with impossible speed, drawing the swarm away from the crippled Galari vessels. "Incoming transmission," Ben announced. A woman's face appeared on the main screen. She had dark eyes and wore a simple dark uniform with minimal markings. "This is Captain Hannah Kim of Earth vessel Prometheus," she said calmly, as if she weren't currently executing maneuvers that defied the laws of physics. "Your people are safe now, Commander. We'll clear a path for you to the nearest safe harbor at Outpost 7. Tae-1 could barely find words. "Captain, thank you. But why would you risk yourselves for us?" A small smile crossed Captain Kim's face. "Let's discuss that after we've dealt with our mutual problem." For the next hour, Tae-1 and his crew watched in amazement as the Prometheus systematically drove back the swarm. The human ship deployed technologies the Galari had never seen before: energy fields that disrupted the swarm's hive-mind connection, targeted electromagnetic pulses that confused their navigation systems, and finally, a weapon that seemed to fold space itself, trapping clusters of the creatures in pocket dimensions. When it was over, the void swarm had retreated, and the surviving Galari ships were limping toward the safety of Outpost 7 under the watchful protection of the Prometheus. Captain Kim invited Tae-1 aboard her vessel. The Galari commander was surprised by the ship's interior, clean and efficient, but less ostentatious than he had expected. The humans themselves were polite but reserved, watching him with curious eyes. "My government has authorized me to offer substantial payment for your assistance," Tae-1 said when he met Captain Kim in her ready room. "The Galari do not forget their debts." Hannah Kim studied him for a moment before shaking her head. "We don't need payment, Commander." "Then, why?" "Humans don't typically involve themselves in others' battles." "Consider it a favor," she replied, her expression unreadable. "We'll collect someday." Something in her tone sent a chill down Tae-1's spine. "What do you mean?" "Humanity plays the long game, Commander. Today we helped you. Tomorrow, perhaps you'll help us." She smiled again, more warmly this time. "Don't worry. It may be years before we call in that favor." As Tae-1 returned to his ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just committed his people to something far beyond a simple debt of gratitude. The Galnari Council would be perplexed by the humans' actions. Aliens simply didn't behave this way without clear motives. What could humanity possibly want from the Galnari that was worth risking a ship and crew? And what would collecting on this favor eventually mean? The grand observation deck of Galnari Central Command offered Admiral Taiwan a sweeping view of his homeworld's glittering capital city. 30 years had passed since the Void Swarm attack, and the crystalline spires had grown taller, the transit networks more complex, the defense platforms more numerous. The Galnari had prospered in these decades of relative peace. Taiwan's reflection in the window showed the changes time had wrought, his once jet-black hair now silver, his face lined with the responsibilities of command. He had risen through the ranks to become admiral of the entire defense force, respected and decorated. Still watching the stars for them? Asked a voice behind him. Taiwan turned to see his old friend and second-in-command, Junho. They had served together since their early days, and Junho was one of the few who remembered the true story of the human rescue. Not watching, Taiwan replied. Just wondering. The debt to humanity had faded from collective memory. In official records, the battle against the Void Swarm had been recorded as a strategic victory by Galnari forces with minor assistance from non-aligned vessels. The Council had preferred this version. It maintained their image of strength and independence. But Taiwan remembered the truth. He remembered Captain Hannah Kim's words, "Consider it a favor. We'll collect someday." For years after the rescue, he had awaited that collection with tension. When it didn't come, the anxiety transformed into curiosity, then obsession. He had made it his business to learn everything possible about humans. My contact in the diplomatic corps says humans have declined another invitation to join the Galactic Council, Junho said, joining him at the window. Of course they did, Taiwan said. They've never been interested in our politics. Humans remained the great enigma of the galaxy. While other species formed alliances, engaged in trade wars, or occasionally skirmished over territory, humanity kept largely to itself. Their ships were seen at trading hubs and their diplomats maintained correct but distant relations, yet they revealed little about their home system or their true capabilities. What was known was that their technology advanced at alarming rates. Every few years, human ships would appear with innovations that other species couldn't match: artificial gravity that didn't require massive generators, energy shields that adapted to different weapon types, propulsion systems that bent conventional physics. They're building something in the outer rim, Junho said quietly, checking that no one else was in earshot. Something big. The Council is nervous. Taiwan nodded. I've seen the reports. What the reports didn't show was his personal communication with Jiho Park, his unofficial human contact for nearly 20 years. Jiho had never explained his role in human government, but he seemed to know everything and had access everywhere. Through their conversations, Taiwan had glimpsed human culture in ways few aliens ever did. They're preparing, Taiwan said. They've always been preparing. For what? That's the question, isn't it? Later that week, Taiwan met Jiho at their usual location, a quiet viewing platform at the edge of the Celestial Gardens. The human looked younger than his years, though a touch of gray at his temples hinted at his true age. The Council is monitoring your construction projects, Taiwan said after they exchanged greetings. Jiho smiled. We would expect nothing less. Will you tell me what you're building? Insurance, Jiho replied. Your people think we're isolationists, Admiral. The truth is more complex. We've been watching, learning, and making connections across the galaxy. Humanity believes in preparation. Taiwan studied his companion. You still wonder about that favor, don't you? Jiho asked suddenly. Before Taiwan could answer, both their communication devices activated simultaneously. Jiho's expression changed as he read the message, his usual calm replaced by something Taiwan had never seen before: urgency. It seems our time has run out, the human said, standing abruptly. Taiwan's own device displayed emergency alerts. Unknown vessels had appeared at the edge of charted space, massive ships that had somehow bypassed all early warning systems. First contact teams from 3 different species had gone silent. You knew this was coming, Taiwan said, the realization dawning. This is what you were preparing for. Jiho didn't confirm or deny. Admiral, you should return to your command center immediately. Things are about to change for everyone. As they parted ways, Jiho gripped Taewon's arm. When Admiral Kim contacts you, and she will remember your debt. The galaxy's future may depend on it. That night, as reports flooded in of an overwhelming alien force methodically advancing through the outer systems, Taewon stood again at his observation window. The stars looked different now, each one potentially harboring a threat his people weren't ready to face. And somewhere out there was a human fleet, led by an aged Captain Kim, now Admiral, preparing to collect on a 30-year-old favor. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so chaotic. Representatives from 27 species shouted over each other, diplomatic protocols forgotten in the face of extinction. The massive hologram floating in the center of the room showed the advance of the Convergence fleet, a swarm of black ships shaped like twisted thorns, moving with terrible purpose through the outer systems. "They've taken Viridian Prime," announced the Tellurian ambassador, her scales flushing pale with fear. 40 million dead or missing. Mizar 4 has gone silent, added another voice. No survivors reported. Admiral Taewon stood silently at the back of the chamber. The council had summoned him for his military expertise, but they weren't listening to his recommendations. Fear had overcome reason. "We must combine our fleets," insisted the Galnari High Counselor, pounding his crystalline staff against the floor. "Stand together against this threat." "To what end?" countered the Draconian representative. "The convergence technology renders our weapons useless. Their ships absorb energy attacks and their armor resists physical projectiles." "Then we retreat," said another. "Each species to their core worlds. We fortify and defend what we can." Taewon watched the alliance that had maintained peace for centuries crumble in minutes. This was not the way of the Galnari. His people believed in honoring commitments and facing challenges together. But even he could see the military reality. Nothing in their combined arsenals seemed effective against the invaders. His personal communicator vibrated against his wrist. Taewon slipped away from the chaotic meeting into a quiet corridor. When he activated the device, his breath caught in his throat. The face that appeared was lined with age but unmistakable Admiral Hannah Kim, the human captain who had saved his fleet 3 decades ago. Her dark eyes were the same, still sharp and penetrating. "Admiral Taewon," she said, her voice steady. "It's been a long time." "Admiral Kim," he replied, fighting to keep his voice level. "I wondered if I would hear from you." "Time to repay that favor, old friend." There it was, the words he had both expected and dreaded for 30 years. "The convergence," Taewon said. "You knew they were coming." Kim's expression didn't change. "We suspected. Humanity has encountered their scouts before, in other regions. We've been preparing for this moment for generations. What do you need from me?" "A small fleet of your fastest ships. Crews you trust completely. And your word that you'll follow my lead, even when the mission seems impossible." Taewon hesitated only briefly. "What is the mission?" "There's an artifact," Kim explained. "Located deep in what is now Convergence territory. We need to retrieve it before they understand what they have." "What kind of artifact?" "I can't explain everything over this channel. Meet me at these coordinates in 3 days. Come alone if you must, but know that the more ships you bring, the better our chances." After the transmission ended, Taewon returned to the council chamber. The arguments continued, but now centered on evacuation priorities and resource allocation. The fight was already being abandoned. 2 hours later, he stood before the Galnari Defense Council, the highest military authority of his people. "This is madness," said Defense Minister Chul, reading Taewon's proposal. "You want to take 5 of our most advanced vessels on a secret mission into enemy territory? While our homeworld faces extinction?" "I believe this mission may provide answers we desperately need," Taewon replied. "Based on what? The word of humans?" Chul scoffed. "They've kept themselves apart from galactic politics for centuries. Why trust them now?" Because they saved my life once, Taewon said simply. And they asked nothing in return except that someday I might help them. That day has come. The Council's rejection was swift and unanimous. The Galnari fleet would be consolidated for homeworld defense. No ships could be spared for what they called a fool's errand. That night, Taewon sat alone in his quarters, studying star charts of the region where the convergence had first appeared. His door chimed. Enter, he called. 5 officers walked in, captains he had personally trained, men and women who had served under him for years. His most trusted commanders. Captain Min stepped forward. We heard about the Council's decision, Admiral. Then you know I cannot order you to join me, Taewon said. You don't need to order us, Min replied. Each of us commands a vessel. Each of us remembers the stories of how humanity saved our fleet when we were young officers. If there's even a chance this mission could save our people, we're with you. The Council will call it treason, Taewon warned. Perhaps, said another captain. But the Galnari honor their debts. That's who we are. 3 days later, as the Galactic Council continued its fruitless debates, 6 Galnari warships silently slipped away from their defensive positions. Their destination, a remote system at the edge of convergence territory, where Admiral Hannah Kim waited to collect a 30-year-old favor that might determine the fate of the galaxy. The human vessel Prometheus had changed in 30 years. What was once sleek and mysterious now looked positively ancient compared to the 5 Galnari ships that approached it. Yet Admiral Taewon felt a chill when his sensors detected energy readings from the human craft, power levels that shouldn't be possible from a ship that size. They're hailing us, announced Captain Min from her position at communications. Admiral Hannah Kim appeared on screen, her uniform simple and black like before, though now it bore additional insignia Taewon didn't recognize. You came, she said with a small smile. And you brought friends. These are my most trusted captains, Taewon replied. We are prepared to honor our debt. Kim nodded. Follow us to the rendezvous point. We'll brief you there. The rendezvous turned out to be a hidden base inside an asteroid field. 3 more human ships waited there, smaller and more agile than the Prometheus. As the Galnari officers assembled in the briefing room, they found themselves joined by a dozen humans of varying ages. This is Officer Dae-hyun, Kim introduced a tall, serious-looking man. He'll lead the ground team for this mission. Dae-hyun nodded respectfully to the Galnari. I understand you have questions. I'll try to answer them clearly. He activated a holographic display showing a small, crescent-shaped object. This is what we're after, he explained. It's currently held in a convergence research facility on what used to be Alteras 3. What is it? Asked Captain Min. We call it the Keystone. It's not a weapon, as most would guess. It's a control mechanism for a network of wormholes created by a species that lived in this galaxy long before any of our civilizations existed. The Galnari officers exchanged glances. Everyone knew the legends of the ancients, but few believed they were more than myths. The convergence doesn't understand what they have, continued Dae-hyun. But they will soon. When that happens, they'll be able to move their forces anywhere in the galaxy instantly. A Galnari scientist named Subin, who had insisted on joining the mission, studied the hologram with intense interest. If such a network exists, why haven't we detected it? Because it's dormant, Kim explained. It needs the keystone to activate. Taewon's mind raced. And you knew about this? For how long? Kim's expression was unreadable. Humanity has been searching for the keystone for over a century. We found evidence of it just before our first encounter with your fleet. That's why you saved us, Taewon realized. You were collecting allies for this moment. We saved you because it was right, Kim corrected him. But yes, we knew someday we might need friends throughout the galaxy. The plan was audacious to the point of madness. The combined human Galnari fleet would create a diversion, drawing convergence ships away from Alteras 3. Meanwhile, a small team including Dae-hyun, Subin, and volunteers from both species would infiltrate the facility and retrieve the keystone. This is certain death, one Galnari captain said bluntly during the planning session. Perhaps, Daehyun acknowledged. But if we do nothing, death is guaranteed for all our worlds. As preparations continued, Subin worked closely with the humans, studying their technology. One evening, she found Taewon alone in the observation deck. "Admiral," she said urgently, "I've made a discovery." She showed him data she had collected on human communications. They've been sending encoded transmissions to at least 15 other locations in the galaxy. All different frequencies, all different encryption patterns. What does it mean? It means we're not the only ones they've called in favors from, Subin whispered. Humanity has been preparing a galactic response to the convergence for decades. They've been building a hidden alliance, species by species, favor by favor. 2 days later, they launched their assault. The battle was fierce and immediate. Convergence ships responded to the diversion with overwhelming force. As the space battle raged, the infiltration team landed on Alteras 3. Taewon monitored their progress from the command ship. For hours, there was silence. Then a broken transmission came through. "We've secured the keystone," Daehyun's voice crackled. "But we're cut off. Convergence forces between us and the extraction point." "Hold position," Taewon ordered. "We'll find a way to reach you." But it was impossible. Their fleet was being decimated. The Prometheus had taken heavy damage protecting the Galari ships. 3 of his captains were already dead. "Admiral," Min said softly from her station, "our sensors detect a massive convergence fleet approaching. We have minutes at most." Taewon closed his eyes. They had the keystone, but they would never escape with it. The mission had failed. "Sir," his tactical officer suddenly called out, "something's happening. Multiple spatial anomalies forming throughout the system." The viewscreen showed dozens of points in space beginning to distort and tear open. Taewon watched in disbelief as the fabric of reality itself seemed to split apart around them. The tears in space widened, forming perfect circles of swirling energy. Admiral Taewon could only stare in shock as ships began emerging from these portals, hundreds of them, then thousands. The tactical display struggled to categorize the vessels as they appeared. "Sir," Captain Min gasped, "those are ships from every known species in the galaxy." She was right. Taewon recognized the angular vessels of the Draconian Empire, the organic-looking ships of the Mizar Collective, the massive spherical dreadnoughts of the Tellurian Guard. Dozens of species that normally kept their distance from one another were arriving together, forming into attack formations with practiced precision. At the center of each group was a human vessel, coordinating their movements. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Kim," announced the communications officer. Kim's face appeared on screen. Behind her, the bridge of the Prometheus was filled with smoke and sparking equipment. Despite her obvious injuries, she smiled. "Told you we were playing the long game, Taewon," she said. "All debts called in. Humanity thanks you for your part." The realization struck Taewon with stunning clarity. "You did this with everyone," he said. "You saved ships, colonies, maybe entire civilizations, all these years. And each time, we asked for nothing but a favor to be named later," Kim confirmed. "Today, we name it." The combined fleet moved with astonishing coordination. Species that had never fought together operated as if they had trained for years. The convergence ships, caught unprepared for this unprecedented alliance, began to fall back. On Alteras 3, the ground team watched in awe as the sky filled with ships from across the galaxy. "Now," Daehyun said to Subin, holding up the keystone. "We need to activate it." Subin had studied the ancient device during their mission. "It requires a specific frequency to unlock," she explained. "I can create it, but it will alert every convergence soldier to our position." "Do it anyway," Daehyun said. "Trust me." When Subin activated the device, it pulsed with golden light. Almost immediately, they heard the sounds of convergence troops converging on their location. "Now what?" asked one of the Galnari soldiers, raising his weapon. "Now we wait," Daehyun said calmly. The wall behind them suddenly dissolved into another swirling portal. Through it stepped Jiho Park, the human who had been Taewon's contact for 20 years. "Excellent work," he said, taking the keystone from Daehyun. Time to go. He led them through the portal, which deposited them directly onto the bridge of Admiral Kim's vessel. The network is active, Jiho reported. Kim nodded. Begin final phase. Across the battlefield, the combined fleets suddenly changed tactics. Instead of engaging the convergence ships directly, they began herding them toward specific coordinates. What are they doing? Taewon asked. Watch, Kim replied. Jiho inserted the keystone into a console. With each adjustment, new portals opened in space, directly in the path of convergence vessels. Unprepared for the sudden spatial distortions, entire squadrons of enemy ships were pulled into the wormholes, disappearing from the battlefield. We're not destroying them, Kim explained. We're relocating them to empty systems thousands of light years away. They'll survive, but it will take them centuries to return if they ever do. Within hours, the battle was over. The convergence fleet had been scattered across the galaxy, their invasion halted before it could truly begin. In the aftermath, representatives from all the participating species gathered on a neutral space station. Many were meeting each other for the first time, despite having fought together so effectively. How did you manage this? Asked the Draconian High Commander. Some of our people have been at war with the Tellurians for generations, yet today we fought as one. Admiral Kim stood before the assembled leaders. Humanity has been called many things: isolationists, mysterious, even cowards for not joining your councils and alliances. The truth is simpler: we were busy building something different. She gestured around the room. Not treaties or trade agreements, but personal connections. One ship, one colony, one person at a time. We helped when we could and asked only for a promise in return. Taewon finally understood the full scope of humanity's plan. You knew the convergence was coming even 30 years ago. We encountered them first, centuries ago, Kim admitted. They destroyed Earth's first colony world. We realized then that no single species could stand against them, not even humanity with all our technology. So you built the most unlikely alliance in galactic history, Subin said with dawning comprehension. While the rest of us were focused on our own borders and disputes. The galaxy is changing now, said Jiho, who stood beside Kim. The old divisions seem smaller after what we've accomplished together. As the gathering dispersed, each species returning to their territories to rebuild, Taewon found himself alone with Admiral Kim one last time. Is my debt paid? He asked. Kim smiled. For now. But if there's one thing humanity understands, Admiral, it's that the universe has a long memory. One day, we may need each other again. Taewon nodded, looking out at the stars with new eyes. And when that day comes, you'll find the Galari ready. We've learned that when humanity offers you a favor, you should accept it without hesitation. And when we call for repayment? Kim asked. We prepare ourselves for the unimaginable, Taewon replied with a smile of his own.